Welcome back to Eliminate the Gap. As you can tell, Delmar and I have found our way to each other again. You would think that would be a real simple thing that we would absolutely know what to do with that. I had it in my head that we would go to a park and do kind of a remote and bring nature to you all. And then what did I forget about?
He forgot about we need signal, a service. And I was like, so are we going to hotspot this thing? And he looked at me, he's like, oh, and I was like, oh boy.
I didn't think about that. And so then we went to a place that's near where we're getting service out from here, and we were able to get service. But then, and anybody who knows me well knows that I do not care for the bugs. And the gnats were out in force.
I was like, they're technically, while they're bugs, they're not like bugs.
No, so it's very gnatty out there. So
They
as you can see, we're back inside, and it's been a great summer so far. In fact, it's almost time for you to go back to school.
Not so thrilled about that.
You got football starting, I think, tomorrow.
Yes, very excited about that, though.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, but it's been a great summer, and thanks to so many of you for continuing to watch and listen and share comments. We've had some interesting subjects. And today's we're excited to bring to you as well.
Yeah.
It's about a year ago that we did a podcast with the Greg Taylor, the executive director of the NBA Foundation. And so we thought we might go to a local foundation of a NBA team today. And so we'll be speaking to Corey Wilson, who's the executive director of the Pacers Foundation.
Yeah, really looking forward to talking to Corey, find out what's going on in the ground down or up in Indianapolis from where I'm from. But so yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I got a chance to be in Indianapolis for a little bit a couple of months ago. So yeah, I'm really excited because now I can actually, have a foundation of where things actually are in the city. So
that's right. No. So we look forward to that conversation, and we'll be with you here in a moment.
Welcome back, guys, to Eliminate the Gap here. We're here today. Well, actually, we're together still again. And we have Corey Wilson with us. He is the Vice President of Community Engagement and the Executive Director of the Indiana Pacers Foundation. So we're really glad to have you here today with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here with you all.
Yes. So we'll go ahead and get this kicked off with you. Can you just tell us a little bit about the Pacers Foundation and what you guys do?
Sure. So the Pacers Foundation has been around since 1993. So we're coming up on our 30-year anniversary. Wow. In really recognizing and supporting 501c3 organizations that are youth focused here in the state of Indiana. And that has expanded just slightly, as most organizations have, from a social impact perspective and thinking about social justice and equity and inclusion. But still, going back to the core of youth is really the foundation of what we do.
Perfect. And I just, I know and familiar with the Pacers Foundation from its inception. And so just taking what you said about kind of an expanded role that the organization's taken, one of the things that's, to me, more unique than other funders is that you've really begun to target in on certain zip codes and certain needs within those zip codes. Not that you're not there still throughout the state of Indiana and others, but I know that there's an emphasis there. So help us understand how that came about as kind of an intentional decision, and then how that's working so far for you all.
Sure. So a couple things there. One, we are the Indiana Pacers. So you're exactly right. We actually, by some state regulations, need to be engaged across the 92 counties, with a slight carve out around the Chicagoland area with Gary and other being in the Chicago Bulls market. But we really pride ourselves on doing things across the state. But that notwithstanding, we also have observed opportunities within our community engagement and our foundation perspective, where we, for a long history, had been great at doing a lot all across the state.
Right.
I'm sorry, excuse me, a little all across the state. And so as a result of some of the things that happened in 2020, we really started to look at that and say, how can we be more impactful from our investments, from our activations as a company within the communities that may be underserved or that are underserved. And so here in Indianapolis specifically, we really looked at that to what Eric just alluded to think about certain zip codes that we can focus on. And there's zip codes that other organizations, other municipal agencies equally have begun to pour into well before 2020. But we wanted to come alongside and really leverage the resources that we have, but almost equally as importantly is our brand. Coming to the table with the Pacers are doing this adds a different level of credibility and awareness and insight to the community about some of the things that we are trying to positively impact. And so those 5 zip codes that we're focusing on today, even through COVID, we've been able to have some early successes in engagement. It's a little bit early to talk about some of the results of those, just again, because of COVID. And these are decades long historical challenges that these communities have faced. But I'm really happy of the progress that we've been able to make to this point in developing those relationships and really learning what we can do. We really pride ourselves on not showing up and saying, we're the Pacers, you should take these 100 basketballs and be happy about it, but really learning what the community needs to then bring forward our resources, our partners, our networks to add some positivity to those situations.
Cool. Can you elaborate a little bit more in regards to what you look for on the ground in terms of those zip codes? Like, is there anything in particular of the organizations that are already there, or is it better for you to go with partnerships you already have and come in? Obviously, you want to have some connection to the community, but what is it that you're looking for?
Yeah, the answer to that is yes, all the above. We actually do a little bit of both. So I'll phrase a response to that in the areas of grassroots and grass tops. And so the grass tops organizations are the known CDC, community centers, and other organizations within these zip codes or that serve those zip codes that you could rattle off your tongue in any community across the country. So we continue to support those organizations at that what I'll call the grass tops level for the purpose of this answer. But then I also really am trying to identify, or we are trying to identify and think about grassroots organizations as well. Those are the smaller, maybe a staff of 1, maybe 2 people who have a different look and understanding of neighborhood specific issues. We do have some relationships now that we're starting to develop with individuals that can say, oh, that's Miss Sally's house. She lives at 1234 Jones Street, and they have an amazing financial literacy program that they're just trying to get off the ground, and while that may seem like that would be futile to engage someone like that, those are the types of programs that are going to have the impact that is needed in that community, because she knows, in this fictitious example, what's needed in the community that she represents and where she lives. And so those grassroots organizations and efforts are the other ones that we're trying to really highlight and hopefully, again, engage in a different way than just singularly at that grass tops level.
So one of the things that you alluded to it a little bit here, but clearly COVID impacted a lot of things, right? And so not only are you a funder, but you're also, the Pacers have ways in which they fundraise. Mm-hmm. And so, like, for example, in games, and then we had a season where we didn't really have a lot of people in the stadium and things like that. Tell us about kind of what creatively you all have been able to kind of think about, or how you've kind of overcome that, or continuing to overcome that in terms of fundraising and funding.
Sure. So it has been tough from a fundraising perspective, not too dissimilar from other organizations. Just to give you some context, our primary sources of revenue are we do a masquerade, kind of formal gala. We have a golf outing. We have this year, it's actually happening tonight. Hopefully, by me saying that doesn't date this too much. But we have a big golf. It's a putting exercise for our Fever Fund at what is it's a competitor to Top Golf that we're doing tonight here in Indianapolis. And then we have our license plates. So personalized license plates for the Pacers Foundation are the primary sources of revenue. And the 50-50 raffle are the primary sources. And so each one of those took a hit in its own unique way during COVID. What I'm excited about is, one, we do have a benevolent owner and organization that was able to sustain us, which is not always the case with other organizations, through the trials and tribulations of COVID, to where we continue to make grants throughout the time that COVID was at its height, even though we went for a number of months with no events here. So that we canceled the masquerade for 2 years. The golf outing did happen, but it was severely restricted. So all of the things that everyone else has experienced. So we haven't had to be as creative as some organizations that went completely dry and there wasn't any revenue coming in. But we're excited now that start of this season we're going to relaunch our 50-50 back in our games. The masquerade is happening in October. I told you about the event tonight with our Fever, and the golf outing is scheduled as well. So we've been able to come out of it okay, but it's definitely been tough, and we're watching those numbers very closely. And mine also, I guess I'll overshare this piece of information. With the market doing what it has done recently, our investments have taken a significant hit.
Sure.
Of dollars that are invested in the market. And so although our returns our losses are better than the losses of the market, I mean, we're still down. And so we're conscious of that and watching that as well.
Yeah, and that's just a common thing, but through some of these difficult times is resiliency, right? And innovation and creativity. So I'm glad that things are kind of, for all of us, right, moving kind of in an upswing motion. One of the, we've interviewed the MBA Foundation executive director about a year ago, honestly. And so in learning so much about what it is that they're doing, and I know there's a connectedness between the franchises, foundations, and the work that the MBA Foundation is doing around economic empowerment of Black and Brown teens and in communities. So you mentioned on the outset about things that happened in 2020 and how things have expanded: diversity, equity, inclusion, et cetera. Tell us a little bit more about how the Pacers Foundation is aligning with maybe some of the efforts with the MBA Foundation.
Sure. Could I just go back and say one other thing about your previous question, and that just thinking about diversification of revenue. And so the other thing that is really on our minds here is to think about the next generation of donors, and really what are the strategic efforts that we are cultivating to engage them. So to the question you asked previously about what are we doing that's innovative, I don't know if this is as innovative, but it is something that we have not done. And that is, we have largely relied on those big ticket items or events that I just referenced or rattled off to you. And those are usually attended by those well-established donors in our community that can write those big checks. But we are making a strategic effort and intentional plan for engaging those $5, $10, $15, $20 donors to engage in some of those events that I just spoke about, but also new ones that we have in the pipeline to bring out this year that will start to really cultivate a different class or a different group of people towards the ideas of philanthropy. And so I just wanted to add that into the previous
That's awesome.
question. And I would say to your question about how we have partnered with the NBA Foundation and the efforts around DE&I. So one, it's at the core of our organization, DE&I, and this was before things surrounding George Floyd and social justice. We were excited about the fact that the NBA Foundation is in existence, and our owner, like the other 30 owners of the NBA, are giving $10 million each over the next 10 years to this effort to see the NBA Foundation. We're excited that the Center for Leadership and Development here in Indianapolis was a recipient of dollars from the NBA Foundation. We actually took them by there when they visited in March of this year. And it was announced, it hasn't been announced publicly, but the organization knows that they were received a renewal of their grant.
Oh,
which will
nice.
be announced here in August, I believe. So I think that just shows the continued commitment and partnership that we have. It's really good to have that thought partner at the table that can, quite honestly, add some additional gas to our efforts of philanthropy and social impact. And so there have been several cases where organizations have requested funds from the Pacers Foundation, and I've been able to have conversations with them about maybe it might be a yes or it might be a no, but also there are other organizations that equally might be keenly interested in what you're doing, and being able to have that warm transition and handoff to the NBA Foundation has been fantastic.
Yeah, I remember our conversation with Dennis Bland from CLD, and how important he said your all's relationship was in helping them kind of through that grant process and beyond. So that's great that is a continued relationship, and not surprising us. What a wonderful thing that it is they do.
And it's great to kind of see how all these things interconnect, and we've been able to kind of follow the bouncing ball, as they say, to kind of see how that works. And it's really great that the NBA is doing this. So it's off to you guys, the NBA, and the programs out there on the ground doing the grassroots, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that in mind, can you tell us a little bit about how you would like to see the capacity of those community organizations strengthen to make the greatest impact for the community?
Yeah, I think that really goes kind of what I was saying earlier, that there's some really creative approaches to community development, community revitalization that are happening at that grassroots level that just haven't had the chance to really get to the table for programmatic dollars, for capital dollars, or just overall raising the awareness about the organizations. And so that's what I'm excited about. And seeing some of that happen, not just from us, but other philanthropic organizations here in the city that are all, thinking about that grassroots level. There's a really strong philanthropic network here in Indianapolis, with us being the headquarters for the Lilly Endowment, which is, I think, number 2 largest endowment in the nation, amongst others. There are a number of meetings where we all as funders are attending to really understand what other organizations are doing and how we can come alongside are the things that I'm most excited about. And, quite honestly, through some of the things that happened in 2020 and beyond, those relationships have been strengthened, and a more laser focus even when some of the things around DE&I that we were just talking about are becoming prevalent, that I think are a positive thing for our community and our state.
Yeah, it's and just again recognizing what's happening not only in Indianapolis but in several communities around the country. Just even establishing a position, a senior level position in a lot of organizations that focuses specifically on DE&I, right? So that in itself is a step, and then putting some teeth and additional, company dollars behind it is, and you see this kind of coordination within the nonprofit community and the leaders, so that as time goes on, we'll continue to see improvements and see kind of that infrastructure being built that will make a difference. So that's not surprising, but I'm glad that you shared that there's this alignment with all the key funders in the city.
Yeah, and we're seeing some of that, to your point earlier about having a senior DE&I person here. When we were looking at the opportunity to bring on someone, one of the things I talked about was whomever it may be cannot be an only lonely. You can't do this work by yourself. And so, actually on the street right now is an open position for a manager level person that's going to work alongside our senior DE&I person. And so I think that again shows that continued commitment to this work. And my office works very closely, both on the foundation side and community engagement, with our DE&I in making sure that we are keeping those topics front of mind.
Excellent. And it's always heartening to hear for sure kind of the progress that's being made. As we kind of bring this to a close, one of the things that we always like to ask of our guests, and this was not shared with you in advance, so feel free to take a moment. We always like to ask, because we come at this from a youth development perspective. That's been our career. This is how we think. And so we always want to give our guests an opportunity to share kind of who was that important person in your life as you were growing up. Could be a parent, could be a coach, whomever, right? That really guided you, kind of shared, kind of pushed you, kind of was tough love, whatever it might have been, right? Who was that kind of person in your life, and what is it that you feel like they did for you to help you kind of where you are today?
Yeah, I don't know if I have just one. I mean, you talk about it's a village that helps raise you. Each I look at 3 people specifically that really had help in shaping my life. And my mom, who was the homemaker, stayed home with my sister and I to raise us, helped me understand the value of hard work, etc. My father was the one who was pushing us externally to be the best that we could be. But I jokingly used to tell the story that I could find a way to print money, and my father would say, "Oh, I think that's about a C," because he always wanted me to be humble and have that level of humility and understanding that, don't ever rest on your laurels. And the third person would be my aunt, who is very accomplished in her own right, an attorney, accomplished speaker, etc. And her acknowledgement and understanding of the world and how business works was very influential for me and from a career development perspective. And so I think it's that mashup of my mother and father and aunt collectively. I see on a daily basis, evidence of what they've been able to pour into me, and that I try to, leave hopefully a positive mark on our daughter and my wife as well.
Awesome. Well, man, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time here today, coming to talk with us, and then really sharing some really great stuff. So we hope everyone can take some good things away from this, which I think they will.
Yeah, and don't worry, nobody's watching. So just because you have an event tonight, no, it's all good. And again, we will share some additional information for those of you that want to know a little bit more about the works that the Pacers Foundation is doing in the community. We'll make that available as well. But Corey, again, thanks so much for the time today. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Good being with you all.
All right. Thank you.